I found it! Another quilt shop. Starlight, Star Bright. Quilt Star is on tap today for our German Quilt Shop tour.
Could you imagine a more clever object? Warms the body, ignites the mind. A child sleeps under mother's creation, together forever. The art of the heart and design of the mind puts you to bed one day at a time. The art of the heart and design of the mind.
The busy town of Frieberg is located in a corner of Germany, close to France and Switzerland. So it's only fitting that the owner, Monika Schiwy, has teachers from all three countries. I wonder what sort of results they get in their quilt making. Contemporary quilting strikes their fancy more than anything else, but they like small projects that can be finished quickly. We're right next door to the song studio. It is so pretty here. Come on in and meet Monika, the owner.
Guten Tag.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Give us some history as to how your shop got started.
I lived in America 1991 to 1992, and I started quilting there. And when I came back to Germany, I didn't find the right material, fabrics and notions, so I decided to open my own shop. And I started very small with only 30 bolts. And every time I sold a bolt, I bought new fabrics. That's how my shop grew.
Well, you started small, but now it's great, and a good location here. Do you have plans for the future? What's going to happen?
Well, I hope it's growing further, and I can live on it.
Maybe sell one bolt, buy two new ones, something like that.
Right?
Well, I know that there is an explosion in quilt making in Europe. How has that happened, and especially here in Germany?
Well, there was an international quilt expo in Karlsruhe in 1994, and there were many exhibitions, and I think that's why many started doing patchwork and quilting. We have a German guild, and there are about 14 guilds within Europe, and they are the European Quilt Association, and there are 14 countries that belong to this association. And also they have contests going on. The last one is about water. The theme was water, and there were about 193 quilts chosen, and they were divided into the 14 countries, and they travel in a suitcase.
Ah, great!
And every time the represents meet again, they exchange the suitcase, and we have new quilts to see.
So that's what we're looking at on the wall. Each one a different style, a different interpretation of
in a
water.
Different country.
And naturally, blues and greens, which sparks such color and such a vision on the wall here. Let's talk about you personally. I know that part of the activity in your shop are the lessons. Do you teach also?
Yes. I'm giving classes, and I have 3 other women that are giving classes. I have a program twice a year with different classes. Most of them are only 1 evening or 2 evenings, because people don't want to plan their whole time ahead. So we have short classes.
Let me ask you the big question. Define contemporary quilt making.
I think that's a very difficult question. I think first of all, you've got to know many different techniques, and you know how to do things. So, and also I think you have to listen to your inner part, and it's a very difficult question.
Well, maybe your quilts will speak for itself. Let's look at a few of your works. Is this named?
This is named, this is called Doors of Destiny, and the spiral symbolizes a life, and this is when you're born.
Ah, very good. That's the beginning. Okay.
Yes.
I love these two pieces. Are these works planned? Do you know ahead of time? Are they on paper? How do you develop these?
I work like improvisation, and this I did for a contest in Austria, in Innsbruck, and the contest was about the 4 elements: wind, fire, earth and water, and this is called Ice Time.
Ah, okay.
The inner part is pleated and surrounded like a log cabin.
Mm-hmm. And then you do machine quilting?
Yes, and I machine quilted it, and for the sparkling I put some pearls on top of it.
Looks like ice to me. Very good. And the one on the wall?
The one on the wall has a pleated center as well, and it's called lumen, which means light.
And this is a breath of spring.
This one's called cementa, which means seeds. It's freehand cutting and free machine embroidery. Yeah.
How do you do this? Is this a special technique where you incorporate your machine?
No, it's just freehand quilting. That's it.
All right.
I can demonstrate it for you.
Maybe you can show us. Good. So, Monika, you have chosen a design on the machine that you're going to simply punch in and then do. Is that it for your machine quilting?
No, it's not a pattern from the machine. It's free embroidered.
You're making the little cross?
Yes.
Ah, I did not realize that.
It's not programmed in the machine.
Okay. And
it's my decision which way I want to have it.
I see. And are the feed dogs up or down?
They're down.
Okay, well, let's watch what you're doing here. I like that open toe foot. And so you're in essence forming a larger circle with those inside.
And I go from one to the next. I always go back to the center.
And the viney work, is that done freewheeling too?
The leaves are programmed with a machine, but the line is 3 stitches on top of each other, so it makes it a little bit thicker.
Very strong too, creates bulk there.
Yes.
I also like the technique that you have incorporated in these book covers.
These embroidery pieces are made from selvages you usually throw away, and you use a lot of different colors of threads. I prefer rayon, and you can do it different ways. Either you only lay it in stripes or a checkerboard or freeform.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about this work. They're like contemporary samplers. Very interesting.
Yeah, this is a piece from Pascale Goldenberg. She is French and she teaches here. And this class is called Textile Mosaic. And she uses steamer seam and puts the fabrics on top of it, and then she embroiders it.
Mm-hmm. A lot of freewheeling there also.
Yes.
Let's get a good look at the other one. They're both unique. Now, it seems that we share a lot of quilt notions across the pond, but it's amazing to find something I've never seen before in America. Tell me about this.
This is a kind of fleece, or it's not a batting, it's like a stitch tear.
But it's like a stabilizer type.
Yes, yes, mm-hmm. And you can have it either with a checkerboard on the back or with triangles with a 60-degree angle. And it helps you sewing on the line.
Right, but you can sew and flip then, in other words. This becomes your base and you can start from that. Very interesting. Well, we thank you so much for this opportunity to know more about quilt making in Germany and then get a chance to talk to one of your teachers too.
Thank you very much for coming and joining us.
Elspeth Nusser-Lampe is a teacher here at the Quilt Star Quilt Shop. What do you think drives you to be a quilt maker?
I like fabric. It's a part of my life, and it's very emotional.
Teaching is another expression, a way to pass it on and show off your work.
Yes, I think it's you can find a lot of creative ideas with fabric, and I think it's important to bring it to the people to be creative.
I know that you have labeled yourself a contemporary quilt maker, but isn't it hard to teach that? How do you teach that?
Yes, I think it's more difficult than to teach traditional patchwork, because if you have a traditional pattern, you can say this size and you can say how to do it, but to do a contemporary way of this, you must know the personality of your students, and you must encourage them to go forward and to find their own way and to be themselves.
Tell us about your works from the very beginning there.
This quilt I think I made it in 1992, and is made of crazy patchwork, and I saw a lot of strings here in it, like grass in the water.
And then the next one that has some red and green, almost a Christmas flair to it.
No, it's called Rainforest.
And I understand the dark quilt is at the University of Nebraska?
Yes, this was a competition with the subject expression of freedom.
Well, congratulations for all the quilt work that you do and helping Monika out here at Quilt Star.
Thank you.
What fond memories of Frieberg. We wish Monika all the luck in her quilt shop. We got a little treat that night for dinner, and I have a special plate from the Bear restaurant where we ate. Did you notice that Monika uses the metric rulers in her shop? Of course, that's the way they cut in Europe, but it's nice to know they are available. In honor of our trip to Germany and a little picnic in the Black Forest, our feature block is called Black Forest. 4 trees in just a 4-patch that meet in the center. And of course, it's pretty easy to see that with a 4-patch, you're just creating these 4 sections. And it's a matter of putting the black triangles to the trunk. I'm getting ready to sew another one. I've got a couple of them done. In this case, I did use the grid grip to cut out the patterns. And you can keep the paper on there, but if you've got a good 1/4-inch seam allowance, you can go ahead and take that off. Some people like to keep the paper on as a good guide for stitching. Once you've stitched, that would be 8 sides, 2 for each of them. I'll do one more. Then it's important to either go to the iron, or a lot of people are using the little wooden irons, the pressers. So once that is done and your freezer paper is removed, then you can come, and I would probably direct that seam to the back or to the outside because of the dark, and press that all the way. And then sure enough, you've got some pruning to do right here and get rid of those dog ears that are hanging out. And I like to get rid of threads. So 4 times you'll simply connect that triangle to the forest trees, and then you'll be doing a 4-patch. Don't forget to do that little twirl so you have a soft intersection. Once you've sewn that across, release those seams so you'll get a nice intersection. Thread, the glue of all quilts. Thread is used to sew seams, secure hems, and of course, to construct our beautiful quilts. The manufacturing of thread began in Paisley, Scotland, nearly 250 years ago. 2 families, one named Coates and one named Clark, both began by using silk twine on a loom. When Napoleon waged war in England, the blockade prevented silk supplies from reaching Scotland, so cotton thread was tried on the loom, and it worked. Both companies thrived and began doing business with the United States until the Civil War broke out. Once again, imports were curtailed but two plants continued for nearly 120 years. Finally, the families merged so that Coates and Clark came together. The invention of the first sewing machine by Elias Howe meant a stronger thread was needed, so George Clark developed a 6-core thread that twisted together like a cable. It was called ONT, short for Our New Thread. The thread manufacturing begins at one of several spinning plants, just like this one in North Carolina. Cotton enters the spinning plant in tightly packed bales. The bales are opened and placed on a plucking machine. The machine plucks a little tuft of cotton from the top of each bale. The tufts pass through ducts onto a chamber where they are cleaned. Now, polyester does not have to be cleaned because it is a man-made fiber. Carding also cleans the cotton fibers. These machines have a series of rows covered with many metal teeth, which are used to separate and straighten the cotton fibers into a rope-like form called flyber, F-L-Y-B-E-R. The flyber is still 200 to 600 times thicker than it will be when it is finely thread. The frames will draw the flyber down into 3 different sizes. For the first time, a slight twist is added. Now this is called roving. The cotton or polyester strands of yarn continue to be drawn out until they are the proper size. They are twisted to add strength and stability to what is now a very fine yarn. After more twisting, combining, and inspecting, the thread is ready for dyeing. Threads can be dyed into one of thousands of colors. Coates and the Society of Dyers and Colorists have created the official standard used to measure color. Each dyed lot uses a specific color formula. The dye packages are loaded onto the carrier, which is weighed to make sure the right amount of dye and chemicals are used during dyeing. Everything is done automatically. Human contact is removed from the process, so it's as precise as technically possible. During the finishing operation, a lubrication is applied to the thread. This is important because the thread must withstand friction and heat that is created when the thread passes through the sewing needle. The quality of thread production is monitored carefully at every stage. Finally, it ends up here on your sewing machine, ready to start your next project. O is for offhand, the hand that rests under the quilt, guiding the needle and feeling that all 3 layers have been caught in the quilting process. O is for on point. A block rotated 45 degrees is said to be set on point. Our basket quilt would probably work a little bit better if it would be on point. Whereas in the little wall hanging I'm doing, I'm taking our 6-inch block and setting it straight on. P is for patchwork, the art of building a large piece of decorative cloth from smaller pieces. I've never thought of it as work. Possibly we should rename it patch fun. Piecing or piecework, the process of sewing 2 or more pieces of fabric together. And we've been doing that for a long time. I think you know what piecing is. P is for prune, to trim away excess fabric or triangular points or to even the edges of a block. Just as these dog ears are going to be pruned and trimmed off. Remember to save those dog ears. I'm going to add a P to our alphabet today, and that is for the pineapple quilt. I introduced this many series ago, but I never had my own pineapple quilt, and I'm just about done with it, so I wanted to share with you how it was one of the first blocks to be done on paper. And I have it set up to sew on the front of the paper, and these lines extend outward so you know where to place your raw edge. These strips go on the stray of the grain. The plaids are cut on the bias because they go on the angles. When they are sewn and flipped, they even out and are parallel to the outside of the block. Let me show you my quilt. But first, an antique quilt from long ago. Doesn't it have a lot of character? And finally, my quilt is almost done. Well, a few quilting stitches. Do you think it's bright enough for you? I like that striped border. It adds just the right pizzazz. We're We're going to leave pineapple and go back to M for mountains. Have you had a chance to draft that 60-degree diamond? Remember, we worked on a 60-degree diamond that had a 12-inch side. Now, to make this whole quilt, you can, of course, piece each of these diamonds into stars, which we're going to show you, and then you can cut out random diamonds, and in some cases, of course, you have the setting sides, which is nothing more than half of the diamond for the side, and then for the top and bottom, you'd have another half of the diamond going the long way. But look about the fun that you can have piecing the diamonds. How about a simple 4-patch with a 6-inch diamond, 4 of those, and one of those I just wanted a smaller star. Or you could take a 4-inch diamond and break that up into a 9-patch. 9 of these make one of these. So I think you have a lot of fun in using your scraps for diamonds. Let me show you how to piece those stars. The stars were drafted in 60-degree diamonds that had 12-inch sides to them. Remember, I divided that 60-degree diamond into 3 rows, 4 inches, 8 inches, and then connected the rows. Then the fun part was drafting that diamond all the way to the side, over, back, and up, coming through these intersections. Coding, C-O-D-I-N-G, is the next step. I found that doing row A, B, and C works the easiest. So there's A1, A2, and A3. B1, B2, B3. Now I usually do a no here or erase it. I needed that for drafting it, but I don't need it anymore. This is one big template. C1, C2, 3, 4, and 5, and I don't need that line. I sometimes draw what I call a crossover clue here, and that helps when I get ready to put it back together. My next step is to cut that all apart, and I usually use my rotary cutter for that. Then I would go to the iron and press with a dry iron on the back side of my star fabric. In this case, I had 4 templates, and the key here is notice how I've lined up the grid with the grain of the fabric. The same thing for my sky fabric. Then I would cut each of those templates out, adding with my see-through ruler the 1/4-inch seam allowance on all sides. And then it's like a puzzle. After all, patchwork is a puzzle. Now it's ready to piece back together. And so I would do my pin and peeking. I've already sewn one. I pinned, and I found out that my grid is perfectly lined up. So then I would probably sew on this side, right next to the paper edge, being certain not to go on the paper on the back side. Then I'll come and do the next one, and I like that pin and peek, how I can pin here and see if I have that lined up, then I'm ready to sew. Just open that up and see that my edges are lined up. Do 1 row at a time. Then I usually pull the paper off because then I'm ready to sew all 3 of my rows together. And there's my star with personality. Now, how is it put together? Remember I said diagonal rows. Here's a smaller piece, a 6-inch one that's in progress, and you can see how the rows go on the diagonal, and when you're pinning those together, yes, you will have a little dog ear that ekes out. This time it's an equilateral triangle. So as those come together, play with the colors however you want your arrangement to go. Add more diamonds, more stars, whatever you want to do. I wish you luck in trying your stars with personality.
Closed captioning made possible by OmniGrid, manufacturer of the original patented black and yellow rulers and green cutting mats, and Collins, well known for notions and tools for quilt makers. For more information about patterns and designs shown on this series, visit Georgia at www.georgiabonesteel.com. Lap quilting with Georgia Bonesteel is made possible in part by grants from Bernina, makers of sewing machines manufactured with the care of traditional Swiss workmanship. Nothing sews like a Bernina. Nothing. By Gamel Quilting Machine Company, offering 4 sizes of long-arm hand-guided machines to quilters worldwide. By Coates & Clark, America's #1 name in sewing, hand knitting, and craft products. By Martingale & Company, home of That Patchwork Place, publisher of America's best-loved craft and hobby books. By Hobbs Bonded Fibers, maker of heirloom premium cotton and wool batting, with a package labeling system to help quilters select the correct batting for specific projects. And by Horn of America, cabinets of the future today.